Okay, so hello everybody. I didn't want to leave you guys without a story for this time, but this is another story I have. So I lived here in California. I guess at that time I lived here in Montebello, California, which I still do, but because I used to move a lot. That's the sad part. I used to have a lot of friends. Then I moved. This is the sad part about everything. I could make friends. But what was it to make friends if later on I would move and then I could make friends again, then move again and make friends again? It just doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make any sense. That's the sad part for me. I used to have a lot of friends and then I moved schools, and I moved cities, so I could not communicate with them again. And at that time I was a kid, and at that time no one cared about having cell phones, and who cares about having a computer, and who cares about internet, and who cares about all of that. I just cared about having people to talk to. So let's talk about school. Okay, no, not really school. So as I said, I lived in Montebello maybe from maybe like, I'm not sure when. I guess like maybe like, I don't know. I would say maybe like, I think I had my first birthday months. I guess I had my first birthday here in Montebello, which that would technically be, 1 years old or 3 years old. I don't remember, but I don't really remember that well. But I have photos, and you guys can guess how old I was. So I lived in Montebello for a couple of years, and I would say maybe 2003, 2004, or maybe up to 2005. Not so sure. I moved. I took a train with my family, and I don't even know how everything that we had went there. No, I didn't think we even took anything. I think we left it in my grandma's garage. But I moved to Chicago. So first I was born in LA, like Boyle Heights, I guess. You could say Boyle Heights, which is sad. It's nothing that is supposed to be happy. And from there we moved to Montebello, and I lived in a house. And then from there we moved because the guy was a scam artist. So we had to move. So we moved to an apartment. And from there we moved to Chicago after that. So like I said, I've always moved. All my life has always been about moving, moving, moving. I've always moved schools. I could make all the friends I wanted, but what good did it make if I was going to move anyways? So I moved to Chicago, and oh my gosh, it was okay. It was okay, but it was way too cold. So I moved to a city. I don't know what city. I mean, I moved to Chicago, Illinois, and I lived in an apartment that I hated because when I moved, because technically here in California we had a beds, we had everything. We had beds, we had covers, we had clothing, we had food, we had cars, we had everything. But as soon as we moved to Chicago, because we didn't take anything with us, because we just abruptly moved. I don't know for what reason we moved to Chicago. Oh man, I have no clue why we moved, but I think we lived there for like a year or two, maybe the most like a year and a half. But we moved without anything, no clothes, nothing. We bought everything in Chicago. It's like everything became new to us in Chicago. Everything. The city was new. I never traveled to Chicago ever. So we got a train. We went to Chicago. I think it was like maybe like 2 days the most to Chicago. And I went to elementary school there. Maybe like, because I would say like, I don't know how to say it. I would probably say I was like in the second grade. No, because I think I went. Let me think. Okay, so I'm gonna say like maybe I was like in the second or third grade, or was it? I don't remember. That is a little bit weird. I don't know. I'm just gonna say I was like in the second grade. I don't know. Maybe third grade. Second and third grade, whatever. So I went to I don't know. I think I went to elementary school here in first and second. Then half of second I moved to Chicago. I don't know. Whatever. I'm just gonna go with that, whatever. So I went to Chicago. I lived there for maybe a year or two, maybe a year and a half. And I hated the apartment I lived with my mom's. Not with my dad, because sad to say that my dad left me. He left us in Chicago and he did his own thing. He dumped us in Chicago, which my father came back and he's still in our life right now. So yeah. So we moved to Chicago. My dad lived with us for a couple of months or weeks in Chicago. Then he left us and tricked us and whatever. So we ended up stranded in Chicago. We could not move. So yeah, that's how it was. We were in Chicago. I hated it because the apartment was way too small. I think we didn't even have a bedroom. And if we did, we didn't have beds. We didn't have anything. And I still say it to this day. I don't think because I lived in two apartments in Chicago. For most of you that don't know this, I lived in two apartments in Chicago. One, which I hated. The second, which it was okay. It was okay. It was an upgrade, and I don't know if it was closer to my school, but oh man, I hated. I mean, I kind of loved the I mean, I didn't love the apartment. I hated the apartment, but I loved the people that were there. I loved it. I loved the people because I had friends. I lived on the second floor. Well, people lived on the first floor, and I loved it because I had friends. I had tons of friends in Chicago, and in Chicago was completely different. I think there was. I'm not sure. I'm not really sure how even elementary school was for me in Chicago, but I lived there for a year or so, and I used to go many places. I used to go to the market. I used to even be enrolled in an art school there. I think it was like a professional art school or something. I was in art school. I don't remember. I don't remember if I went to a. Oh no, I think I did go to a mall. I think the mall was close to the airport because, like this, I lived in Chicago, in Illinois, in Cook County, and I used to travel all the way to Midway. I don't know if that's the airport or the city or whatever it was, Midway or Cicero or something. And I used to go to the mall, which at that time was completely different. And when I got to Chicago, the first thing I did was get on the Sears Tower. When it was the Sears Tower, not when they changed it to that weird one, Willis Tower, whatever they're calling it now, which I don't think they had that that piece on this like on the whatever floor it is, the highest floor, where it's like a wall that's see through or kind of like glass where you can sit on and you can look down. I don't think they had that at that time, but I lived there. I had a park. My mom always went to a Christian church. That's the only thing I could say, Christian church. But to me, I was kind of scared of Chicago all the time. I was always scared of Chicago. I was always scared of living in Chicago because at that time there was no such thing as, I mean, there were cell phones, there was a bunch of stuff, but there was no cell phone with GPS. There was no cars with GPS. We didn't even own a car in Chicago. We didn't own beds. We didn't own anything. Nothing was ours. Not even the apartment. We lived there, but that doesn't mean we owned it. We rented the place. Nothing was ours. So that's where you could say, holy crap. I was like considered poor there, like even worse than poor, like nothing, nothing poor. I just felt like completely insane poor, really really poor compared to being in LA where you could say, and it was a cold city, and at that time when we moved, it was very very cold. It was like, I don't know if it was around through through February, January through February, but or maybe like November, December, but I was so scared of living in Chicago, not because I was scared or anything, but I mean like I didn't like the city. Is that I was scared that being in school, like after school, I wouldn't know where to go. Like I didn't know how to get home because it was my first day. I didn't know how to get home, but I loved it. I loved it because they actually taught me. We had all that Bill Nye the Science Guy movies. We had all that Magic School Bus. We used to do more interactions of science that in California I never had none of that. And I was learning cursive, and but after that I didn't learn any cursive. But Chicago was nice. I'm not saying it sucked. I'm saying it was nice and I loved it, but I was scared though because my sister was like maybe like a couple of months, maybe 1 year old at that time. I was, I guess she was 1 year old. So I lived with my sister, my mom's, my sister, and I guess basically me. Three of us. While my dad lived somewhere else. I don't know what he was doing at that time, but he lived with us for a couple of months or something until he just like ran away. But he came back, so that's something. So like I said, I we used to go many places. We used to get on the bus and just head anywhere, and I used to get we used to get lost, and at that time it was like really late. There was a time where it was like really late, and we were all scared because it was snowing, and I didn't know how to get back. Definitely did not know how to get back because, like I said, no GPS, nothing. There's no GPS. How do you expect to get back? Like, say you get to downtown Chicago, and how do you get back to like I don't know if you consider that the Latino side to like Cook County, which is oh man. But there was a park there, so maybe sometime I can show you where I used to live, where my apartment was, and you guys get to learn more about me. But I don't have to say, I don't get to say that I hated Chicago, but it was okay. So I lived in an apartment that sucked. I hated it. It was like run down apartment, like sucked. It was an apartment that had hallways just to get to your apartment. Like there was apartments on the first floor, then there was stairs to go up to the second floor, and there was more apartments. But I hated it. I hated it because no beds, no covers, no nothing, nothing, no heaters, nothing, just a stove, and nothing I could say was mine. Nothing that I had I could say was mine. Nothing. Nothing. Don't expect that. Oh, I got to Chicago. I had family there. I had friends. No, I had nobody. Nobody. So don't come to me and say I was never poor. I wasn't dirt poor. I wasn't down like very very poor. Because Chicago, I had nothing. Nothing that I could say was mine. Nothing. And being in Chicago, yeah, I definitely had friends. I definitely could play tag with my friends and be with all kinds of stuff. And there was a girl that I had a crush on too. I'm not going to deny it. I'm not going to deny that I didn't have a crush on her, but I did. I definitely did have a crush on this girl, and not going to say sad, but definitely going to say that I did have a crush on her. And even when I came back to California, I still had a crush on her and did everything I could to write a letter to send it back to her. But I didn't really know where she lived. I didn't know anything about none of that. I didn't know where she lived. And I think at that time I was barely playing Game Boy SP when it came out. So Game Boy SP and I think Game Boy Mini was around. So that's all there was. And my neighbor had a Super Nintendo and I could play all that. And I've always thought of, since before, I was different. So yeah, I could talk to a bunch of people and just be crazy. So I went on a train to Chicago. But when I came back, oh my gosh, I was so scared because I've always been scared of flying. Like flying is not something I would love to do. Is that something I say? I love flying. I love flying. I love getting on a plane and going to New York. Or I love getting on a plane and I want to go to Chicago again. No. I just have to say that I'm scared out of my mind. So if anybody's out there, I don't care if you consider yourself a doctor or you consider yourself a plain a whisperer or whatever, just come to me. And my email is in the bottom anyway. So if you guys have any questions, email me or whatever. And I just want to say, I've always been scared of flying, and I've always been scared of flying. I've been scared of heights. I've been scared of everything that just has to do with planes. Like being high in the sky, like 30,000 miles. I've always been scared. I've always been scared of heights. But I went to Chicago and I did go on that Sears Tower all the way to the top, which was cool. But I don't know if I was scared. And I'm scared of turbulence. I'm scared of landing because everything just seems scary about everything. I'm not lying. I've always been scared of all that. So I got on a plane from Chicago with my pops, with my dad. He came back and he just took me from my mom. He just got me and I said, yeah, I want to come back. Definitely, because my grandma was here. She lived alone. And she lived alone until she died. But that's something else. So, yeah, definitely, I would say that I came here to California again, and I lived with I guess I stayed with my grandma by myself while my mom still lived in Chicago, and she still found a way to come on the Greyhound. And still, my father didn't come back to our life completely. He still was I guess you could say a loser or something. But I don't want to say anything bad about that anymore. So that's the story that I have to say, that I love Chicago, just that I didn't know the place, so I could get lost. I could probably be on the because in Chicago it's like everywhere. I'm not saying just Chicago, because there's places where it's like there's the Latino community, there is the African American community, and then there's a white community, or the like the Caucasian community, which I'm never going to be saying anything bad about anybody. So that's just me. I've never been. I loved it. I love Chicago, but getting on a plane from Chicago to California, oh my gosh, how scared I was. How scared I was. I just used to get frightened. I used to scream when there was turbulence. Like I didn't like turbulence at all. That was scary. But other than that, I was brave enough to come here. Just when it hit turbulence, I got scared. I was already scared of heights. So getting on the plane and going straight up, I was scared. I'm not lying. So I get to. That's all I have to say. So thank you guys for watching. If you like story time, please hit that like button, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Please comment something if you feel the need to comment. If you didn't like it, I'm sorry. I'm not here to lie to you. I'm just giving you story time. I'm not lying. I just love to give you story time and be honest as possible. So thank you and have a wonderful day.